am a human being.
You are obsolete.
Lie. No man is obsolete.
The state has no use for your kind.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
Delusions to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all.
This is how it works. A stand is taken, and the one to stand is called weak. Mr. Wordsworth may not look it at first, but it is clear who really is the strongest in this room. Though it will take a lot for everyone here today to see the truth. And then, when it's right in front of them, they will be forced to face it or continue down this dark and dangerous path of setting anything and everything on fire that would dare to stand up against them. It's in that decision, here within the Twilight Zone, that we will find one of the most important twists in all of horror and see just how close the Twilight Zone can be to our very own history.
You're cheating your audience. They want to see how you die.
Knowing that you're going to be blown to smithereens in a few moments isn't the happiest thought in the world, is it?
We'll show the people how this obsolete man, this librarian, dies.
What you're about to witness is a man on a mission to help people at any cost and deliver a message from his sponsor, ZocDoc.
The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
Yes, I understand why you called me here, and I also know the state has made some very questionable choices about my occupation as a doctor.
A what?
A doctor. A top-rated doctor at that. My past patients have ensured this title for me by leaving reviews about me and my services on ZocDoc.
Has this man had counsel?
Yes, sir, he has.
Are you sure he knows his rights?
Counsel, that's not really my specialty, but if that is something that any of you need, you can absolutely find a different top-rated doctor on ZocDoc that would offer counseling or therapy of any kind.
The state has no use for your kind.
That's why I am here, to prove the state wrong, to let everyone know that it doesn't matter where they are or what time it is. Booking a doctor's appointment has never been easier, and a top-rated doctor is just a click away. You can book a doctor's appointment right now to finally talk to someone about that dream you keep having.
You are obsolete. Obsolete. You are obsolete.
Dr. Gibbst's mission was not just to help those in this room, but to get his message out to all of you. The message to stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Polter to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. And thankfully you can without having to worry about this obsolete state. Right now you can go to ZocDoc.com/Polter. And thank you, ZocDoc, for sponsoring this video. As always, I am fully assuming that you have seen this episode of The Twilight Zone, The Obsolete Man, the final episode of Season 2. And you can see just how important of an episode this was to Serling himself with how long his intro is. It's very straightforward, it's very direct, which is a little unusual, but if you know the history behind Serling and the whole reason he made the Twilight Zone in the first place, you would know that he has wanted to be this direct the entire time. But because of censorship and everything else that was going on with studio interference, it was very clear to him the only way he would ever be able to present such stories that dealt with heavy topics that were very real all throughout history, and especially during his own time, it was by covering it up with a little bit of science fiction. You have no idea what I'm talking about with his history and trying to get his stories out there to show on television. You must go look into it. See how it all began with the murder of Emmett Till and then worked its way all the way up to the Twilight Zone by inspiring him to want to go out and present these stories to help people to be able to do exactly what Mr. Wordsworth is doing here in this episode, to take a stand against such insane places, which is why he begins his monologue with, "You walk into this room at your own risk," because it leads to the future, not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule.
Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
It's after all of that you finally get what would be a typical intro to an episode, telling us about who Mr. Romney Wordsworth is, and that it's his last 48 hours as he is going up against the state. Specifically, in the words of Serling, because he's made out of flesh and he has a mind. But that doesn't change the fact that he's here in the Twilight Zone and that he's going to die. But before we find out why he's going to die or why he's here in the first place, we see Mr. Romney Wordsworth enter into this very odd-looking courtroom, which immediately makes it visually clear to us where everyone is in the standings, of some of them being very high up and others being just a lowly little librarian. The profession of Mr. Henry Bemis's dreams in Time Enough at Last, but here, instead of Burgess Meredith playing a banker that wants to be a librarian, he is a librarian that is being put to death because he has books. And books are not allowed by the state, which is why when he's asked to state his profession, the state enters into a state of shock because no one has ever stated the statement that he makes about the state of his occupation here within the state.
A what?
A librarian, sir.
The Chancellor from atop his podium becomes very confused and concerned that somewhere along the way, someone messed up, because clearly Mr. Wordsworth must be outside of his mind, and looks down to his subaltern, his assistant, to question if he's had counsel, if he's spoken with anyone, if he's gone through all of the checks, and everything is just as it should be. But it's here that while he's doing this, we have Mr. Wordsworth also doing something interesting, because when he entered the room, he appears to be very shy, almost even scared to be here in the first place. But when he speaks up after being questioned by the Chancellor again for what his occupation is, and he states that he is a librarian, you can see it on his face that he is taking a stand. He knows exactly what he said and wants to make it clear what he said. But then, as the Chancellor is doing his checks, we see Mr. Wordsworth step back until he actually steps out of the light that is shining there at the end of his table into the darkness. And I love how the moment the Chancellor begins to speak again, he's not looking, and the moment he sees that Mr. Wordsworth is not right there, he demands that he steps back into the light. It's as he steps forward that the Chancellor is addressing him directly, explaining his own concerns, that it seems like Mr. Wordsworth doesn't fully understand what is happening here. And again, he questions what his profession is. And it's here that Mr. Wordsworth realizes he can't run away from this. So taking a moment, gathering his courage, and nodding along as the Chancellor begins to explain he is here because he has been declared obsolete, and then questions Mr. Wordsworth again on exactly what is his occupation, Mr. Wordsworth speaks loud, and he speaks boldly, that he is a librarian, and if all of these people want to declare him obsolete, but they have to stop him there, because specifically he referred to the state as you people. And they need clarification that he is speaking to the state. From them doing this, it stops him completely as they begin to correct him. Because if he really does wish to declare his occupation as a librarian, that would really make him obsolete, because there are no more books. Therefore, there are no more libraries. So there is no need for a librarian. The same way a minister would claim his occupation as preaching the word of God, but that too would make him obsolete, because the state has proven there is no God.
There is a God.
For the purpose of them both being here, representing both sides and the reason that they're speaking and everything that is happening. It's just so good, because you can see it. You can see it in Mr. Wordsworth, him speaking out against the state and what the state has declared. But then you have the chancellor atop his podium again, speaking back towards Mr. Wordsworth until he realizes he doesn't have to just speak towards Mr. Wordsworth. He can also speak to everyone that is there, because they are also surrounded by a jury on both sides, all of them a part of the state. So as he begins to speak and say that the state has proven there is no God, he picks up his microphone, yelling into it for all of them to agree and nod along until Mr. Wordsworth explains that you cannot erase God with an edict. And it's just, it tickles my brain in a very special way to hear this back and forth and the boldness that both of them have. It's so good. And it just continues to get better as Mr. Wordsworth becomes more emboldened in everything that he's saying, and the Chancellor begins to attack him directly, switching between calling Mr. Wordsworth a bug, a ghost of the past, this obsolete, useless thing within their society, and then also addressing everyone that is there to hear, to encourage them in what he is stating of how terrible of a person Mr. Wordsworth is, until we get one of my favorite lines, not just in this episode, but in the series.
I am a human being.
You're a librarian.
You can probably see why I had to put that line for the very first thing you hear at the beginning of this video, along with another line that Mr. Wordsworth says right after this, that he is a reminder to the state that you can't destroy truth simply by burning pages. Which again tells us the reason that there are no more books is because they got rid of all of them. The only thing that we see in the episode that is left that the state is still putting out is their own newspapers, their own propaganda for everyone to take in and to trust only what they have to say. Every line is better than the last as Mr. Wordsworth is called out for having words just as useless as his precious books, until Mr. Wordsworth declares he doesn't care. It doesn't matter what they have to say because he is a human being. And if he has one thought and speaks it out loud, it lives and it continues on long after he is dead and gone. And I just love this line so much. But the state and the chancellor do not, and immediately he begins to call it delusions, but not just saying it, he's screaming it to the point that he then picks up the microphone to clarify for everyone around that everything he just said is a delusion and that it is all just one big made up thing within the mind of someone who is insane, someone that would dare go against the state. And anybody that would dare do such a thing is a complete waste.
You waste our time, Mr. Wordsworth, and you're not worth the waste.
It's here that everything calms down, and Mr. Wordsworth is told to take a step back as they decide his sentence. And of course, as the jury steps into place, they declare him obsolete. It's just the way they say it. Some of them are like obsolete. And the other ones are like obsolete. It's after this that Mr. Wordsworth is told to step forward, and we finally get the explanation of what it means to be obsolete. And they use the technical term of saying that he will be liquidated within a period of the next 48 hours, though he does get to choose the method as well as the place. It's here that Mr. Wordsworth gets a strange look on his face as he says he is a very rich man, because of all of his choices he has in deciding how and where he will die. The request he makes on exactly how this is to be carried out catches the state off guard, because what he wants is a personal assassin, one that will be assigned to him, sworn to secrecy, and only the two of them will know exactly how he is to die. This gets the Chancellor's attention, and he says that's fine, we can do that as long as your sentence is carried out within the 48 hours. And it will be, because the time that they both agree upon is midnight tomorrow, and the place they agree upon is within Mr. Wordsworth's room. But before Mr. Wordsworth leaves to go back to his room to wait on his assassin, he makes one more request. He wishes to die with an audience. This is something they can do because while it may be an unusual request from the one that is being sentenced, it's not unusual for the state to televise their executions, but that'll come back up here in a moment. For now, the state has agreed to honor all of Mr. Wordsworth's request and sends him on his way as the Chancellor's assistant turns to look up at him and says that that was really weird. He's a very odd guy, but that's fine, because the Chancellor sees this as an opportunity.
We'll show the people how this obsolete man, this librarian, dies.
It's within Mr. Wordsworth's room that we pick back up with him just 45 minutes before his sentence is to be carried out. And while at first he appears to be terrified, he at least isn't alone, because there's a knock at the door. It's the Chancellor, who had received a cryptic note from Mr. Wordsworth making another request, that he simply come and visit him before he dies. This is probably the oddest request of them all, but odder still is the fact that the Chancellor showed up. And the Chancellor just flat out questions Mr. Wordsworth on why does he think that he's here? And Mr. Wordsworth obviously looks at him and says, well, it's because I invited you here. That's why you're here. But that's not what he means. What he is getting at is, why would someone of his status go through the headache of showing up to visit Mr. Wordsworth in the first place? This is so far out of the norm that it really doesn't make sense, and it shouldn't make any difference. Before, though, he answers that question, I've got some questions of my own. First being, how did the Chancellor get the note? Like, the only thing I can figure is that when Mr. Wordsworth met with his assassin, part of it was that he had written out like a letter or something and was like, hey, by the way, after you set everything up to kill me, would you please deliver this to the Chancellor so he'll stop by before I die? My other question is about this room, because there's a lot of books in here, and I was under the impression at first that this isn't allowed. And we know that this is his room, but the room was provided by the state. And he has also been under the state's surveillance for the last 23 months as they have been trying to decide whether or not he really is obsolete. Here he is with all of the books. It just seems odd, but we will see through the rest of the story that the state can be flexible when they want to be. For now, though, what we need to know about the state is that it has no fears, and it is definitely not afraid of some obsolete librarian. This specific wording from the Chancellor makes Wordsworth laugh as he explains the way he sees it, and the fact that he doesn't fit their formula, he doesn't fit their mold that they had set up. He's outside of the norm, and that is a problem for the state as a whole, because he doesn't just follow and obey the way that they want everyone to. The Chancellor has to butt in here to explain that no, he is just like everyone else. He's not outside of the norm, and it will be proven here shortly just how similar he is to everyone else the moment that that clock ticks down and he realizes this is it. He will do the same thing that the Chancellor has seen time and time again, as Mr. Wordsworth will begin to beg and plead for his life, cowering in fear moments just before his death. And it is through that
We'll see then which is the stronger, Mr. Wordsworth, the state or the librarian.
it won't only be them to see it, but also everyone watching here shortly, because not only has Mr. Wordsworth recently spoken with his personal assassin, but two men that came in to install a very fancy camera, as well as some lights, so that way everyone would be able to clearly see how a librarian dies. It's just then that the lights pop on and the broadcast begins, catching the Chancellor off guard for a second, but this is not unusual, as he then explains that last year they televised around the clock, at one point holding a mass execution of over 1,300 people, all of them being put to death within the matter of 6 hours. It's the way the Chancellor says this, with his chest up, like he's bragging about some huge achievement that the state has been able to accomplish through hard work, that causes Mr. Wordsworth to call him out, saying that you clearly haven't learned anything from history, but the Chancellor has to correct him, because they've done their research. They looked at all of their predecessors and saw the fact that they never took it far enough. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin being the specific ones that they looked towards for what the state needed to do to cleanse itself. And I know what you're thinking right now. Hey, Polter, those aren't names that you can normally say on YouTube. They are. I do a lot of research for exactly what can and can't be said here on YouTube. You can say that. As long as it's in regards to history, you're not promoting hate speech, which this is in direct contrast to. That was the point of this episode, is to show the flaw in the setup that leads to that type of regime. The stupid self-censorship that keeps coming up here on YouTube is driving me nuts. Specifically with anything that has to do with history, you can say it and speak about it. Stop trying to cover all of it up just the same way that the state did here by erasing history in this weird way. What are you doing? That exact same question I would ask to the state here. And they would specifically explain that what they are doing is just removing undesirables, ones that will continue to taint the entire population. The ones that are old, the ones that are sick, the ones that are maimed, deformed, and people just like Mr. Wordsworth, who provide no useful function to the state. Though we get a bit about Wordsworth here and an explanation of why exactly he's been allowed to live here for the last 20 years, despite having no purpose. He was a carpenter by trade, not a librarian, but a woodworker, and his handiwork can be seen all over this room with the furniture he made. The skill was appreciated by the state until it wasn't, because he went as far as he could go, and that's what landed him here. He spent 20 years being a carpenter, living here within this room, within this building, within this state, and then spent the last 2 under surveillance of the state to see how well he was working, until they finally decided that he wasn't doing quite enough, and they declared him obsolete. They're now telling him that in less than 40 minutes, his fruitless life will come to an end, as the Chancellor steps closer to him and says, "You aren't facing the cameras, Mr. Wordsworth."
You're cheating your audience. They want to see how you die.
He encourages Mr. Wordsworth not to stifle his emotions, cry, beg, plead. Maybe if he's lucky, some high-ranking official out there will see him and take pity on him, and he will get a second chance. It's here that Mr. Wordsworth does what I love him so much for, because he says, yes, that would be a great idea. I'm sure that's exactly what the state would want. They would want this big show to see how scared he is and how small he is. It's this that causes the Chancellor to realize he's really not getting through to Mr. Wordsworth as he stands up and goes to leave. That is until he's stopped by Wordsworth just before he can open the door. As Wordsworth admits, he hasn't been fully honest with the Chancellor about his reasons for inviting him here, as he then tells the Chancellor that there's no need to be in any rush. They have plenty of time, because neither of them will be going anywhere. Wordsworth begins to explain everything at this point, revealing that the method of execution he selected was a bomb, and that it was going to go off here in his room at midnight, killing him instantly. And everyone else that would be here in the room, just like the Chancellor, who is now realizing the door is locked. Because we saw it earlier, but the Chancellor didn't, because he was speaking too much about how great the state is. But Mr. Wordsworth locked it right behind him the moment he entered this room. It's here that everything completely flips. The way that it was in the beginning is that we had the Chancellor up on the podium speaking at Mr. Wordsworth and addressing the jury on the sides, calling to them to back him up. And now here, in Mr. Wordsworth's room, he is speaking at the Chancellor as he then turns to address the audience there with the camera. It's not just that, though. He begins to use all of the same lines that the Chancellor used on him to make him feel the way that Mr. Wordsworth has felt throughout this entire thing, even stating that the way a man reacts to learning that he will be blown to bits in the span of half an hour, that reaction is what completely depends on the person, whether they will freak out and run and scream and cry, or if they will accept their judgment and sit here and reflect on everything that led up to this moment. It's with that Wordsworth reveals his plan for how he is going to spend the rest of his life. He plans to read his Bible, the only thing that holds any actual value to him, in a book that has been hidden away for the last 20 years because simply to own it is a crime punishable by death. I doubt the state even knew that it was in this room, even though they did know that there are a lot of books here. The Chancellor doesn't have a reaction to this because he's still processing that his time is now ticking by. So the Chancellor moves to call for help by banging on the door and then yelling out the window, but Wordsworth reminds him of all of the rules that the Chancellor himself helped to establish, that you separate the individual that is to be liquidated. You make them feel alone, you make them feel weak, you make them an example to everyone of what happens when the state declares you obsolete. Though surely that wouldn't count towards the Chancellor. He hasn't been declared obsolete. He's not like Mr. Wordsworth. He's a high-ranking official who serves the state and serves a function and a purpose. But the problem is, if he continues to beg and plead and to not hold himself in a manner of the state is not going to want anything to do with him. And Wordsworth points this out, saying that they're not going to send anyone to help you. That doesn't make any sense. Why would they?
The act of rescue would be very demeaning to them.
No. They can't do that. That would make them look weak, and the state can't ever look weak. The Chancellor wanted the whole country to see exactly how a librarian dies, but now they will not just see that, they will also see exactly how someone of the state in such a high position dies as well. There's two moments right here that I just love as the Chancellor looks at Wordsworth and says, "I misjudged you," but Mr. Wordsworth corrects him, saying, "No, you underestimated me." And it's here that the Chancellor steps away farther back into the corner, out of the light, out of the sight of the cameras, and he is called out the same way that he did to Wordsworth earlier by saying that he's not standing in the light and he's not facing the cameras. People want to see the way that he dies. Wordsworth begins addressing the audience, the camera, to explain to them the difference between the two here in this room, the strong, handsome, bemedaled, giant symbol of authority versus the insignificant librarian, but somehow, here in this room, in the eyes of God, facing the great equalizer, there is now little difference between the two because both will be dead here within less than an hour.
We shall see, Wordsworth, we shall see.
The Chancellor sits and they wait, but they don't wait in silence. Even though the Chancellor never really speaks through any of this, Wordsworth does. He reads his Bible aloud for the Chancellor and the audience to hear as he goes through many different Psalms, from Psalm 23 to Psalm 59 to Psalm 14 to Psalm 53, 142, and 130, covering all different forms of encouragement from Scripture. And it's interesting because the Chancellor just sits there and takes it. But at one point, we see him pull a cigarette up, and he is a little shaky as he's taking it. Instead of really being bold or standing there or doing anything, he just sits and waits. The clock ticks and it shows on screen, all while Wordsworth continues reading and the Chancellor does his best to remain calm. It's really neat because there's a lot of like experimental shots through all of this with the clocks on screen and the odd transitions and showing up close of the camera and then showing the Chancellor in the camera lens that way to remind us that we are not the only ones seeing this, but also basically the entire country that is witnessing this moment. And surely this would be a huge moment for the simple fact that this likely has never happened. But one thing is clear through all of this. It's that time is really beginning to tick down for the two of them. And there's a clear difference between the two, as one is continuing to read. He's continuing to do the thing that landed him here, as the Chancellor is just sitting there, waiting until it comes down to that final minute where it is revealed that between the two of them, the way a librarian dies and the way a high-ranking official of the state dies are two very different things. One of them holds to his beliefs and to his convictions, is willing to make a stand, and is willing to stand by everything he has said, while the other one breaks.
Please, please, let me out in the name of God, let me out!
The Chancellor runs for the door just as Wordsworth stands and agrees that yes, in the name of God, he will in fact let him out, handing over the keys to the Chancellor, who struggles with the lock for a moment because surely his hands are shaking at the realization that he does not have very long, as Wordsworth steps back, turns and faces the camera again, Bible in hand, and a smile on his face. The Chancellor doesn't even make it all the way down the stairs before the bomb goes off, filling the stairwell with smoke and debris and putting an end to Mr. Romney Wordsworth. The Chancellor is surely traumatized by everything that just happened, but at least he's still alive. As he gets up and runs away from here, and we fade to black again. And then I remembered at this point that this isn't where the episode ends. I don't know why at first I thought that the twist to all of this was just that Wordsworth invited him here to lock him in the room as a way to make his point, to show everyone the difference between a librarian and somebody high up in the state. And I'm sure you can swap those words out for so many different things, but obviously the point that Serling was making here was of someone in a regime that's just going through this because that's the thing, that's what you do, or else you get in trouble, versus someone that actually has beliefs and holds to those, even in peril, even in the worst possible moments, that their beliefs could lead them to a point of denying everything that they stand and hold dear. Just as Mr. Wordsworth here, he didn't compromise, he didn't do that, he didn't let it go, and that's why Mr. Wordsworth is so awesome. But of course the state would completely disagree with that, and that's the reason that this story doesn't end here, is because we need to see exactly how the state not only deals with the librarian, but how it deals with this specific chancellor. The chancellor enters back into what was his courtroom as he's told to stop and stand right there. His assistant is now standing there at the podium telling him that the state has found him obsolete. All of them begin to call him obsolete as he starts to question and then quickly switches to pleading for them to reconsider, but this jury has already decided that he is obsolete, and once the state decides that, there is no going back and there is no room for argument. All of this is because he disgraced the state, proven himself a coward, and therefore has no function. He cannot stay here. He definitely can't stay within his position, and he is no longer needed because they are declaring him as obsolete. But the difference here between Wordsworth and him is that he will not be under any sort of surveillance for the next nearly 2 years. This will be within the next 48 hours that he will be dealt with after the sentencing right here, right now, because the state cannot have someone like him running around. They need to deal with him as quick as possible. Surely if it was anyone else, he would fully understand this, but here, in this moment, with it being him, he must now declare and state his own case, telling them all that he has done, all the years, all the time spent here with the state, doing its will for so long.
How can you call me obsolete? How can you?
Almost immediately, he realizes that raising his voice is only making it worse. He can't yell at the state in this way. This isn't how it works here. The same thing with Mr. Wordsworth. The moment that he began to speak up for himself was the moment that he signed his own death warrant. And so here, the new chancellor snaps his fingers and a man begins stepping closer to Mr. Weaver, who tries to run but is stopped by the jury. They are everywhere he turns, everywhere he looks, in every single direction, because there is nowhere for him to run. There is no place that he would be able to go to escape his fate and escape the state. Mr. Weaver softly explains that he isn't obsolete. He has a function, he has a purpose and a willingness to serve the state, but no matter how many times he says, please, not a single person budges. Like a pack of wild dogs, the jury slowly begins closing in and growling louder and louder into this deafening hum that completely drowns out Mr. Weaver's pleas for them to stop, until he finally makes a break for it. But instead of running out of the room, he runs up to the new chancellor, again throwing his hands up, hoping that he can show one last time his devotion to the state. But again, it is far too late. Mr. Weaver is obsolete. It's here that Serling returns to give us his closing narration, which I find very interesting for the fact of it being cut short. What we hear in the episode is the chancellor, the late chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete, but so was the state, the entity he worshipped. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man.
That state is obsolete.
Case to be filed under M for mankind in the Twilight Zone, with the part that was actually removed being in the middle after he said the entity he worshipped. It continued on saying any state, entity, or ideology becomes obsolete when it stockpiles the wrong weapons, when it captures territories but not minds, when it enslaves millions but convinces nobody. When it is naked yet puts on armor and calls it faith, while in the eyes of God, it has no faith at all. From Serling's narration here at the end, from in the beginning, throughout the entire story, it is very clear the message that he is trying to get across. And it's one that should be repeated. It's one that we should come back to. It's the reason I enjoy this episode so much, because it has just taken history and put it over here into the Twilight Zone as a way for us to look at it and go, that's terrifying. If there was one thing that I would hope we would all get from this episode, is that Mr. Wordsworth is a very strong individual to be able to stand against the state completely by himself and to hold to his beliefs all the way through his death. To have that level of conviction in what you believe is so incredible to me. Whether you believe in God like Wordsworth and me or not, if you can hold to that conviction, that's incredible. And I don't want you to miss the fact that Mr. Romney Wordsworth is fictional, but that doesn't change the fact that there are many, many people throughout history that have done the exact same, standing up against maniacal rulers over their country or over their state, even in recent past, of people standing up against that and holding firm to their faith or to their conviction that what is happening around them is wrong and they are not going to give in. That is something to work towards. That is something that we should all aspire to be. And it's that reason that this story is so incredible and is one of my absolute favorite episodes of this series, and one that if for some reason you still haven't seen it, you need to go and watch this episode. Regardless if you already know what happens, I still love to go back and watch this. The story is incredible, even if the twist is lacking a little bit. The twist serves the story really well, and of course the acting and the way that it plays out all the way through is really good, but the predictability is right here. It's very clear the moment that Wordsworth begins to flip everything over onto the Chancellor, that the Chancellor then also would have everything flipped on him by the state. That's just how it's going to work out, but it doesn't change the impact and the satisfaction of it, because that's still really good for this episode. Like, this is the only way the episode could have ended. But when I specifically and personally think of the twist, it's all right. The twist is specifically not the reason I watch this episode. This episode is so good with the writing and stands out on its own for the entirety of the series, regardless of the twist, which is insane because I'm like the twist guy, which is why you can see here that the twist doesn't rank very high at all. The writing, the acting, and the satisfaction really carried this one to get it even to this point. But if we're being honest, there's not a single change that should be made to this episode or to this twist. It ends exactly how it should. I know there are other episodes with better twist in the series. There's many that I haven't covered, and there's a lot that I have covered that you should also go and watch. But with this one, I said I would do this so many times for so long now, and I'm so glad to finally talk about it just because of how incredible the writing is all the way through this. And again, if you haven't looked into Serling and the history of getting the Twilight Zone made and all of the hoops that he had to jump through to just be able to get stories like this out there, you need to look into it, because it's incredible to just see his character through this writing that he did. And it's one of those reasons, it's one of the reasons that I do what I do in trying to present stories and then have extra meaning and purpose behind them to hopefully reach and encourage people, just as hopefully you're encouraged to also be like Mr. Wordsworth through this video. And if you've enjoyed my upgrades in production here lately, as well as how I've gone about making the videos when it comes to the scripting side, I've changed a lot about how I make these here recently. If you do like all of that, you can let me know down in the comments, or you can simply like and subscribe to the channel, because we are so close to 200,000 subscribers, which is just a number I can't even wrap my head around, and so far beyond what I ever thought I would be able to achieve with this. And so all I can say is thank you. Just as I would also like to thank you for watching this video, especially to the end, because that makes a huge difference, and it helps even more if you watch more videos after this, because the more you watch the channel, the more YouTube goes, hey, people really want to watch this content, so we're going to show it to more people, and it keeps the engines going. And if you get tired of just me talking, you can also go check out the new podcast, Let's Split Up. We've posted 5 episodes over there now, which is like 15 hours of content for you to go and check out. Absolutely insane. And I've just having the best time hanging out with King Newsme and Crow Munchin. The podcast has been amazing. And thank y'all for already getting the channel to over 2K subs over there. And we just started in July. That's awesome. Thank y'all so much. And since I have it on my mind, I do have a question, because I have a second channel that there are also videos on. Would you want to see like longer compilations on the second channel? Would you want to see them here on the main channel? I've posted them on the second channel in the past. If not, let me know what you would want to see on the second channel, because I have like a lot of stuff and I need to post more over there. Whether you want to see shorter unscripted style reviews over there, or just really big compilation videos whenever I do get enough videos over here together, or even me talking about other interests that I have, because I have other interest and play a lot of Magic and played for 8 hours today in a tournament, and then decided to record this video just for you. And obviously, I hope it was worth it. I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you for being here again. Thanks to all the channel members for helping me to be able to do all of this in the first place, and to keep all of this going so I can continue to do it and continue to up the production. Obviously, I've been able to up the production from where I started so long ago, and it's just been amazing and very helpful in the entire process. And since you are here right now listening to me, thank you so much for that. And I just need you to know that you can always take my hand. Have an extra blessed day, so I can see you in the next one.